When Barack Obama found himself on the receiving end of one of Donald Trump's pointed remarks, many in the audience expected him to push back in kind. After all, insults often invite more insults, especially in political settings, where sharp words are common. But what struck people that evening was not the insult itself, but the way Obama chose to handle it. He didn't rush to the microphone, he didn't raise his voice, and he didn't let the moment rattle him. Instead, he remained composed, pausing just long enough for the weight of silence to settle in the room. That calmness became more memorable than anything said before or after. Obama's approach revealed something about the nature of composure. In moments of conflict, when someone chooses to remain steady in the face of provocation, they take control of the entire atmosphere. Trump's remark had energy behind it, the kind of energy that feeds off reactions, but Obama didn't provide that fuel. By staying centered, he shifted the power dynamic without ever needing to match the tone. That is the quiet strength of composure. It changes the flow of a situation without creating chaos. People often misunderstand calmness as weakness, as if not responding in anger means a person has backed down. But in truth, staying calm often requires more strength than lashing out. Obama demonstrated this by letting the insult stand on its own, giving it no additional importance. The moment he smiled instead of snapping back, the audience began to focus less on Trump's words and more on how Obama carried himself. His demeanor made it clear that composure isn't about ignoring conflict, it's about mastering it. This kind of response also carries a deeper psychological effect. When someone expects a fight and instead receives stillness, it creates uncertainty. Trump was known for his boldness and his ability to unsettle opponents with sharp comments. But when Obama didn't react as expected, it created a pause, a disruption in the usual rhythm. The audience, too, felt that shift. People leaned in, not to hear another insult, but to see what kind of wisdom would follow that moment of quiet strength. The anticipation gave his eventual words even more weight. What made Obama's composure so striking is that it wasn't passive. He didn't shrink away from the moment. He held his ground, but with control. That's what separates true composure from avoidance. He acknowledged the atmosphere, he allowed the room to process the insult, and then he delivered a response that rose above it. In doing so, he not only addressed Trump, but also gave the entire audience a lesson in leadership. This incident reflects a broader truth that Obama often embodied. Composure is a form of power. It doesn't come from dominating a conversation or silencing someone through sheer volume. It comes from being so rooted in one's values that outside noise cannot shake it. In the world of politics, where quick reactions are often seen as necessary, his choice to stay calm stood out. It was a reminder that chaos can be met with calmness, and sometimes that calmness speaks louder than any retort. The significance of that night wasn't in the insult, but in the aftermath. People remembered not what was said to Obama, but how he chose to respond. His composure turned what could have been a forgettable exchange into a moment people talked about long after the evening ended. That is the lasting impact of calmness under pressure. It transforms fleeting remarks into enduring lessons. By staying composed, Obama not only diffused the tension in the room, but also reinforced an image of steady leadership. Those watching saw a man who could take criticism, absorb it, and still speak with clarity. In a political climate that often rewards speed and sharpness, he proved that composure can be the greater strength. And in that moment, he showed everyone present that true power is not in the noise of conflict but in the quiet of control. When Barack Obama finally responded to Donald Trump's sharp remark that night, he didn't use a long explanation, nor did he try to cover every angle of the situation. Instead, he spoke a single sentence. The words themselves were simple, but the timing, delivery, and tone made them resonate in a way that few lengthy speeches ever could. It was a reminder that sometimes less truly is more. The impact wasn't just in what he said, but in how he said it with confidence, calmness, and no need for embellishment. The audience had been waiting for his reaction. Some expected a clever comeback, while others thought he might dismiss the insult entirely. But when he chose to speak briefly and clearly, he caught everyone off guard. The room grew quiet, and that silence became the stage for his sentence to land. People leaned forward, not because the words were long or complicated, but because they were direct. The brevity gave them power. Obama understood that a carefully chosen phrase could carry more weight than paragraphs of explanation. This approach revealed a larger truth about communication. In an age where people are bombarded with information, the statements that endure are often the ones that are short, sharp, and memorable. Obama's choice to use one sentence reflected his ability to read the moment. He knew that a long defense would weaken his position, while a quick, deliberate line would not only answer the insult but also shift the energy of the entire evening. He delivered it with a composure that made the sentence echo in the minds of everyone listening. Trump's remark was designed to sting and to entertain, but Obama's reply was designed to endure. That difference mattered. The audience might have laughed at the initial jab, but when they heard Obama's words, they felt the seriousness beneath them. A single line reframed the exchange. turning it from a contest of wit into a lesson in leadership. He showed that when you choose your words carefully, you don't need many to leave an impression. Another reason the moment was powerful is that it highlighted Obama's awareness of his audience. He wasn't just speaking to Trump, nor only to those in the room, but to everyone who would later hear about the exchange. A short, memorable sentence travels far because it's easy to repeat. That night, his words became the takeaway, spreading beyond the dinner and into conversations long afterward. People weren't quoting the insult. They were quoting Obama's reply. The clarity and precision gave his words a life beyond the moment. The effectiveness of one sentence also comes from the discipline behind it. It takes restraint to avoid over-explaining, especially in situations where emotions are high, but Obama's ability to hold back, to trust that one sentence was enough, revealed a deeper confidence. He didn't need to dominate the room with length. He trusted the strength of simplicity. That discipline is what gave the remark its staying power. It also demonstrated the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting often leads to long defensive explanations or emotional outbursts. Responding, on the other hand, is intentional. Obama's one-sentence answer wasn't a reaction to an insult, it was a response crafted to rise above it. That difference is subtle but profound. His words carried authority because they weren't driven by the heat of the moment. They were measured, clear, and delivered with purpose. The silence after his words made the impact even stronger. For a brief second, the room was suspended between surprise and reflection. Then, as the applause began, it was obvious that his sentence had shifted the atmosphere. The applause wasn't only for what he said, but for the way he showed that a leader doesn't always need volume or length to command respect. Sometimes the quietest, shortest line is what carries the deepest truth. In that moment, Obama showed that a single sentence can do more than fill space. It can define a memory. The night was remembered not for the insult, but for the reply. And that reply proved that when words are chosen carefully, their simplicity can make them unforgettable. When Barack Obama stood on that stage after Donald Trump's pointed remark, he knew that the audience was waiting to see how he would respond. The natural instinct in moments like that is to meet sharpness with sharpness, to prove strength by pushing back harder. But instead of taking that route, Obama chose a different kind of strength, one rooted in character rather than volume. His words, calm and deliberate, reminded everyone listening that being loud or forceful doesn't define leadership. What defines it is the substance of who you are and the values you stand on. The contrast between the two men was striking. Trump often relied on boldness, humor, and direct confrontation to get attention. His style thrived on energy, unpredictability, and a willingness to speak without filter. Obama, on the other hand, carried himself with measured confidence. His choice to emphasize character revealed that strength is not about overpowering an opponent in the moment, but about showing consistency, discipline, and dignity over time. That is why his one sentence carried such authority. It came from a place of deeply rooted conviction. For Obama, character has always been central to his public presence. Throughout his career, he often stressed values like integrity, respect, and empathy. When he responded to Trump that evening, he wasn't simply deflecting an insult. He was reinforcing a principle that guided his entire approach to leadership. By pointing to character as the real measure of strength, he reminded the audience that true power isn't about dominating a conversation, but about earning trust and respect through conduct. The moment also highlighted the way character influences perception. When Obama spoke, people listened not just because of the words themselves, but because of the consistency with which he had lived those words. His calmness in the face of a public insult reflected the same steadiness he often displayed. In more serious situations, a consistency made his response believable. He wasn't preaching something he didn't practice. His character gave his words weight, making them more than just a clever retort. They became a reflection of who he was. This difference between volume and character also resonates beyond politics. In everyday life, people encounter situations where someone else's voice might be louder or more aggressive. The temptation is to think that volume equals authority. But Obama's reply showed the opposite, that strength rooted in character outlasts any loud moment. A raised voice can capture attention briefly, but character commands respect long after the noise has faded. His example became a reminder that leadership is not about who can shout the loudest, but about who can stand firm in their principles. When tested, there's also a timeless quality to that perspective. History often remembers leaders less for their words in heated moments, and more for the values they stood for. Obama understood that, and his response reflected a long view of leadership. He didn't just want to win the room that night. He wanted to leave behind a message that would continue to matter. By pointing to character, he shifted the focus from a personal exchange to a universal lesson. That lesson is why the moment remained in people's minds, not as an argument, but as a statement of truth. The audience's reaction also proved the power of his approach. At first, there was silence, the kind that comes when people recognize they've just heard something meaningful. Then came the applause, not for a punchline, but for a principle. It was respect, not amusement, that filled the room. That kind of response only happens when people sense that the words are rooted in something deeper than cleverness. They felt the weight of Obama's character behind his sentence, and it resonated. Asterisk, in choosing to highlight character over volume, Obama demonstrated a broader truth about influence. Words without substance fade quickly, but words that come from a strong foundation endure. That evening, he showed that true strength is not measured in how loudly you can speak, but in how firmly you can stand when it matters. His composure, combined with his emphasis on character, turned a passing insult into a lasting reminder of what leadership really means. Asterisk, when Barack Obama delivered his short response to Donald Trump's insult, it was not the insult itself that lingered in people's minds, but the words Obama chose in reply. His sentence was not sharp or mocking, but measured and rooted in dignity. That choice revealed something powerful about the way respect endures long after insults are forgotten. The audience might have laughed at Trump's jab for a moment, but it was Obama's calm statement that stayed with them. Respect has a longer life than ridicule, and he showed that clearly. Asterisk, the reason respect lasts longer is because it connects to something deeper in people. An insult may stir a laugh or a moment of surprise, but it rarely inspires admiration. Obama's response, however, was more than clever, it was principled. He spoke in a way that elevated the room instead of dragging it further into confrontation. People left the event not quoting Trump's remark, but repeating Obama's line. That shift was proof that dignity has more staying power than mockery. Asterisk, in politics, insults are common, and they often generate headlines, but they are also fleeting. One insult is quickly replaced by another, and the cycle continues without much meaning. Obama understood that playing into that cycle wouldn't serve him or the moment. Instead, he gave the room something different, words that carried respect, not just for himself, but for the idea of leadership. That respect left a mark. The audience applauded, not because he won an exchange, but because he reminded them of what strength grounded in dignity looks like. Asterisk, what makes such moments memorable is the contrast. Trump's comment was designed to entertain, to spark laughter at someone else's expense. Obama's reply, by contrast, aimed at something higher. He wasn't interested in a battle of wits. He was interested in reinforcing a truth, that leadership is measured by character and respect, not by the sharpness of one's tongue. That contrast is what gave his words the ability to endure. People often forget clever insults, but they remember statements that speak to values. Asterisk, Obama's choice also revealed a deeper understanding of influence. He knew that people would carry his words with them beyond the room, retelling the story of the exchange. A remark rooted in insult doesn't carry well, it loses power the further it travels. But a remark rooted in respect gains strength with repetition. By choosing dignity, Obama ensured that his line would spread as a lesson rather than just gossip. It wasn't just a response to Trump, it became a message for anyone paying attention. Asterisk, this moment also highlighted the kind of legacy leaders leave behind. Leaders who rely on insults may gain attention in the short term, but they often struggle to build lasting respect. Obama, however, understood that respect is what endures long after the moment has passed. By holding himself with composure and answering with dignity, he reinforced the idea that leadership is not about winning small battles, but about shaping lasting impressions. That one sentence became a reflection of the kind of leader he aimed to be: steady, respectful, and focused on principles over noise. Asterisk, the reaction in the room proved how much people crave that kind of leadership. At first, there was a hush, the kind that falls when people hear something that resonates. Then came applause, not for a joke, but for a truth. The audience recognized that they had just witnessed a moment where respect outshined insult. They responded not with laughter, but with admiration. That admiration was not just for the words themselves, but for the calm, respectful way in which Obama delivered them. Asterisk, what lingered afterward was not the sting of Trump's insult, but the strength of Obama's dignity. His words reminded everyone that while insults fade quickly, respect continues to shape the way people are remembered. Long after the event ended, people could still recall his response because it represented something more meaningful than a verbal spar. It represented the lasting power of respect, a quality that doesn't just outlast insults, but redefines them entirely. Asterisk. As the evening drew to a close, it became clear that what people would carry with them was not the sting of Donald Trump's words, but the calm power of Barack Obama's reply. In a room filled with chatter, laughter, and the tension of sharp exchanges, one sentence rose above it all. That line became the moment of the night, not because it was flashy or cutting, but because it reminded everyone that real strength does not need to shout. Asterisk, Obama's response underscored a truth that reaches far beyond politics. In life, there will always be moments when someone tries to provoke, belittle, or challenge us with words meant to unsettle. The instinct is often to fight fire with fire, to prove ourselves by matching tone with tone. But Obama showed another way, one rooted in clarity, composure, and character. His words revealed that respect, when chosen deliberately, can silence noise more effectively than any insult ever could. Asterisk, the room's reaction told the story. At first, silence. People weren't quite sure what to make of the pause after his sentence. Then came applause, building stronger and stronger, not for a joke, but for a principle. The audience knew they had witnessed something rare, a leader who could transform a potential clash into a timeless reminder. In that silence and applause, the contrast between insult and respect could not have been clearer. Asterisk that night also became a reminder of the kind of legacy words can create. Insults are temporary. They make a splash, they cause a stir, but they fade quickly as the next one takes their place. Words rooted in dignity, however, linger. They are repeated, quoted, and remembered long after the moment has passed. Obama's sentence fit into that second category. It wasn't designed to win the room for a few seconds. It was designed to stand as a marker of what leadership, grounded in respect, looks like. Asterisk for those watching, whether in the audience or later, when the story spread, the message was universal. True leadership is not about dominating every exchange, nor is it about proving oneself through volume or wit. It is about holding steady when tested, showing that character is stronger than chaos. Obama modeled that lesson in real time, and it became a story people would retell as an example of what it means to rise above. Asterisk as the lights dimmed and the evening ended. The lasting impression wasn't of rivalry or insult. It was of a single sentence that shifted the atmosphere and redefined the moment. Barack Obama showed that respect lasts longer than ridicule, that composure speaks louder than chaos, and that character outshines volume every time. His words turned what could have been a forgettable exchange into a lasting lesson on leadership, reminding everyone present and everyone who would later hear the story that true power lies not in the sharpness of an insult, but in the quiet strength